Good morning. Friday, the 24th of April. We arrived at the conclusion yesterday, and please, not my conclusion, but a biblical conclusion, that if you are a Christian, it will be obvious. We're not secret agents of the kingdom living undercover. Who we are is plain to see. Paul says what we are is plain to God. Nothing is hidden from God, and we should be visible to men too for who we are and what we are. And once we are born again and belong to God and begin our process of change and growth, bearing fruit and showing love, transforming to be more like Jesus, something else happens to us. We want to please Him and not to grieve Him. We want to follow Him. There's birthed in us a desire to walk in His ways in obedience, like Jesus did. It's not an unnatural desire, but again, one that flows from the life that is in us through God being in us. And Paul says, speaking to the Greeks in Athens in Acts 17:28, "For in Him we live and move and have our being." Let me say that again. In Him, in God, we live and move and have our being. I think it's such a short but profound statement. So living in the right place in relationship with God means that we will more easily do what is right, what He wants us to do. Jesus said it happens when we remain in Him, as a branch remains connected to the tree. He uses the beautiful image in John 15 that I asked you to read, of a vineyard with Jesus as the vine, us as the branches, and the Father as the gardener. And He says in verse 1 to 2, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit He prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful." So if we're bearing fruit, the Father prunes us, He shapes us, He molds us, to keep us trim and in shape and even more fruitful. He disciplines because He loves us and He wants to see us bear fruit. However, if we do not bear fruit, we cut off. Jesus wants us to bear fruit and wants us to remain in Him, but we can choose disobedience and turn our backs on Him. In doing this, it shows that we were never really committed to Him in the first place, never born again in our hearts. If we go on and on and on, living exactly the opposite of what Jesus tells us how to live, and we never show any fruit, there's never any transformation in us, then the question has to be asked, were you ever truly born again in the first place? And I believe the answer is no. In 1 John 2:19, it says this, "They went out from us, but they did not really belong to us. For if they had belonged to us, they would have remained with us. But their going showed that none of them belonged to us." So there's the thing of being present, like attending church meetings or being in a church or being part of a religion, externally but not in your heart. And that's where the huge difference lies. Jesus goes on to say in chapter 15, verse 9 to 10, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in His love." So He's saying that as His branches, it is essential, fundamental that we remain connected to Him. Like the branches, we receive nutrition from the roots and up the trunk, which is Himself. And so we obey and follow Him wholeheartedly. It's not a burden. We want to do it. He calls us His friends because we are in Him and we do what He says. Once again, in verse 14 of chapter 15, "You are my friends if you do what I command." Sadly, I believe it's possible to cross the bridge and yet return to sin. Why would I say that? Because we still have free will in God. We're free agents. He wants us to choose Him, but then continue to choose Him for the rest of our lives. Following God is a choice we make daily, every time we get up. We are born again, yes, once in the beginning. You can't keep getting saved repeatedly, but once you are saved, the process of choosing carries on. Each day we're faced with choices. How am I going to live this day? What will I do with the time that I have this day? But it's like somebody, and I've drawn this again in my little sketch, it's like people on the right side of the river, but they go down the bank once again to the river and they play in the water instead of living up in the beautiful sunshine in Christ. You see, you can't cross back over, but you can still choose to live in the valley of sin. And when judgment comes, you will still be on the right side of the river, but you'll have no reward. And remember, the rewards last for all eternity. And what brings us rewards is how we live on that side of the river, what we do with our lives and time, the choices we make every day. Paul uses the analogy of a builder to explain this in 1 Corinthians 3, 10 to 15. "By the grace God has given me, I laid a foundation as a wise builder, and someone else is building on it." He's talking about building church. But each one should build with care, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. In other words, the final day. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. If it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. So in other words, what you do with the time you have, how you build your life, the results of how you live will last into eternity. If they are good, they will last forever and you will have a reward. If they are bad, they'll simply disappear. They'll be burned up. You will still be saved, but your poor work, your shoddy workmanship will disappear. So in conclusion, what do we understand from this? First, we have to choose to be in Christ, to cross over from death to life. But then we still have free choice, and we have to choose every day to follow him. If we remain in him, if we are close to him, that choice will be easy. But if we drift away and start losing focus, if we take our eyes off him, then we'll be in trouble, and very easily in trouble. In Jesus, we build the right things, the right life, the right way, and will be rewarded accordingly. But if we build things our way and neglect Christ in our lives, then our structure will be weak and will be burnt up. We'll make it into eternity, like this little guy. We'll make it into eternity, but with nothing to show but smoking trousers. I'll carry on with this tomorrow.